There was a large black towel neatly spread on a sofa's left cushion and a padded rise behind it. Shadow, the black mother says. No one ever sits there. She has three teens and a younger son in the home and no husband. She has an older son. He is a shadow of prison, where our Trudell is gone. And these four others see it every day. JC, the youngest, 8, fooling around, he stumbles against it last week. Stared, crying, and shouldered an arm that pressed there. Her face, all of her is tired. She cleans offices all week. All Saturday night waxes Best Buy. Yet her smile moves past that. He run to scrub it off in the shower, she says, still bawling. I didn't mind a bit. 2. A husband and father with no job leans on the corner of a downtown building, leans harder, pressing it toward his spine. He shuts his eyes. Those passing notice him or don't. He stays there. Voices, traffic sounds enter him, but only the sharp inert hardness rising above him matters. Buildings like this don't want him. He's filled out scores of applications, waited with others like him to be dismissed, maybe with lies of vague future possibilities. This raw ache through clothing and flesh feels more direct, and he increases it. He won't cry out, won't answer if some voice speaks to him from beyond this louder, widening hurt. He raises hands to keep anything away that might attempt to blur his situation from this clarity. He won't leave until he's sure he'll feel this building's corner within his wife's smile, kids' eyes. Current events. The next poem, most of these are fairly recent. I guess I don't have much to say about that. This one, just read the thing. It's called Communal. Everyone gets lost, a woman turned on a bus to tell the man behind her, got off at the next stop. He shrugged. But later, in a men's room stall at the public library, he obeyed an impulse to murmur the words. And hearing someone enter toward the urinal, repeat them louder. The teen hearing it had seen a pretty woman browsing mysteries and new arrivals. And when he left the restroom, neared her and said, "Everyone gets lost," and moved to computers. You know what a young man said to me today in the library? Not making eye contact, she told her husband at dinner. Everyone gets lost. The phone rang. A voice began soliciting money for disabled veterans. Everyone gets lost, said the husband, who'd answered. The voice paused. Everyone gets lost? Is that what you just said? The phone, excuse me, is that what you just said? The husband hung up, smiled at his wife. A phone rang across town. Everyone gets lost. Some went to war, came back, and yet didn't. Know what I mean? You can help at whatever level. Click. A black woman frowned. Everyone gets lost. What do you know about it? About anything. She went back to reading in the Bible, willing it toward a son she hadn't seen for a week, since leaving for school the day cops later came asking for him. There'd been a kid stabbed. She found herself moving to her front door, traffic passing by. Everyone gets lost, she shouted. Everyone! She shut the door, sobbing. A man with window half lowered had heard her. Didn't like to think of the words yelled to the night, to anyone or no one. So continuing downtown, he imagined many there singing them while dancing, like in a stage or movie musical. Everyone gets lost, he sang. Now and then. Everyone gets lost. Some get found. And then it seemed wrong. He briefly heard her voice again. The song was a lie. Another lie of his. Everyone gets lost, he said. And said, yeah. Communal. I'm going to read you a prose poem, and I have no idea what was going on here. I just kind of went where it took me, so hang in there. It's called Because. Because someone is born, no one just then has to die. Because two people kiss, a pair of boys in Africa do not have to bear Kalashnikov rifles toward one another, do not have to be drugged, their families threatened, do not have to rape. They do not have to rape because Nancy Drew solved all those mysteries. Because a homeless man extends a cold palm for coins, a passing 20-year-old does not have to state his exact location on a cell phone to a 20-year-old eating cold pizza. Because he eats cold pizza, a new mother in Haiti doesn't have to worry about, again, having no breast milk. A man with broken ribs discharged himself from the hospital at 6:20 a.m., descending in a service elevator because a bruised woman across town did not leave her husband in his drunken slumber. Because his abusive father is dead, the husband can never strike back at him. Because a yellow snake struck me and struck me again in a dream yesterday morning. Because a woman walking alone, not young, not beautiful or even pretty, is walking on a green Appalachian slope right now, singing a song she's known nearly all her life. And the yearning and loneliness of the words and her voice would make you cry hearing it, because it would make me cry, or nearly anyone who's known loss and hope and love and compassion. So I'm going to blame that one on the yellow snake that I really did think about. We've been at war these many years now, and one of the amazing things is how little we're told about these wars, how little we've actually seen of them. I see on our local news troops going off, coming home, and too often yet another dead person, sometimes a really gripping picture of their last year in high school. But very little footage of what it was like to be Iraq, what Iraq looked like. Same thing with Afghanistan. I read a book about things that became everyday occurrences for people in Iraq that we heard about, but really weren't told much about. Things like convoys and house searches and checkpoints. And here's a poem about a checkpoint. It's called 7 Seconds. Because one of the things about war is that you often have very little time to make a decision that could matter a whole lot. The man moves to another bar in his city every other month, as though that may keep her from finding him. He turns his back on the door, jukebox, cigarette machine from which she has previously emerged. Some seasons he doesn't see her, sometimes a few without even a glimpse. When he does, she's near that new checkpoint in Baghdad. Keeps moving toward him because she didn't know what halt meant. Still doesn't. What stop meant then or now. What a palm held toward her was commanding. Maybe tonight from the pool table, rack of cues, rear booth, he'll again see the uncertainty in her eyes he saw as something else before he shot her dead. Move faster, she may have thought he meant, and obeyed. She wore no bomb. Well, not tonight if she appears. She'll bloom red there in the chest, vanish as she falls. Vanish in a neon sign or empty booth, outfield on television, drained glass he'll push at the bartender, because she will never know what he meant. The simplest fucking thing. Just pause there. Pause until you're motioned on. Halt, stop, his mind will cry. If she steps from the cigarette smoke, laughter, cash register, doorway to a restroom, Budweiser clock, He hopes the words won't become audible. Hopes she will finally stop forever in some bar behind. If not, I had no choice. Will once more fill him. No choice before he does it again. 7 seconds. Okay, can I lighten up a little bit? This is about a real happy time in my life. I graduated from college and got some money from grandparents and so on, and was able to take a trip to Europe, a bicycle trip. Bicycle around over there, staying in youth hostels, or just sleeping in fields and so on. Sleeping bag strapped to the back of my bike. And went over, I mentioned the poem on the Queen Mary, because believe it or not, I'm old enough that the cheapest way to go to Europe at that time was on a passenger ship, tourist class on a passenger ship. Round trip, 5 days and nights for $350. This is about, the poem's called 22, I was 22 at the time, and about my last night before bicycling into Paris, and then the next days entering Paris. And I was really ready to enter Paris. I had read about it and dreamed about it and so on, so this was going to be a big day. 22. The night before I first entered Paris on a bicycle, I slept in a field with the city's lights paling the sky. It was late, dark, cold, October. I placed my poncho and sleeping bag, and by morning my weight had melted some frozen cow pies. I rolled the mess and pedaled into Paris. It seemed wondrous. There I was. My bicycle seat felt 8 feet high. I pedaled through colors of Paris to the hotel of a guy I'd met on the Queen Mary. Yes, I could share his room that night. I was too excited not to drink too much cheap red wine, and back in his room I threw it up. Wiped it with towels. Remembered the cow shit I'd brought to the City of Light. Hung towels, poncho, sleeping bag on the rail of an open courtyard outside his second-floor room. My hangover was pounded awake, the concierge shrieking for me to leave, threatening police. It had rained. Night had blown when I'd hung down outside her door. A good morning worse, much worse than my bad French. I staggered to gather my things and pedaled across the Seine on my second day in Paris. 22. Switch a scene here from Paris to I don't know where. This is an if poem. And let's say it's somewhere maybe in Wisconsin. It's called Soup of the Day. If I go to a small town, sit at the counter of a diner, and when they ask what I want, say, story. Do you have a story for me today? I see the soup is beef barley. What's the story of the day? There might be a pause. There might be a middle-aged woman tapping a pencil on her order pad. Well, you got that off your whatever, so what do you have? If I repeat, story, that will fill the stranger like soup. Not forever, not all day, just like soup. Bowl though, not cup. I might hear her sigh and utter, story, huh? Right, maybe a love story. Certain times I think they all are, you know, one way or another. She might gaze at me then, okay. Shorty the cook, isn't back now. His wife left him last week, just took off. He's making today's soup, beef barley. Glimpses her face there. He spits at it. Maybe drips some tears there. All right? Called Soup of the Day, the story you wanted. And now here's the end. I say, how about a bowl of beef barley? You say yes? You say no? I have two more poems to read. My father spent the last couple of years of his life in a senior home at the edge of Madison, and I found myself thinking often about that place, partly because it was his last home. He was there for 2 years, and partly, I guess, because I'm getting a little bit older every year, and maybe such places get closer. So here's a poem about, in my head it was that place, but maybe it could be pretty much any senior home. The poem is called Flesh Vessels, and I mean vessels in the sense of containers, of course, not ships, although maybe that would work too. A man might stand from dinner tonight at a senior home and call for attention. Please, listen, I want to tell you something you haven't thought about. You may repeat it louder before the room quiets. And he points outside where it is snowing. Out there now somewhere is a white wolf. A white wolf. I envision the 4 women at that table averting eyes from his as he sits. The rhythm of voices around them change. A frail woman has now risen across the room. I know something too. I know something interesting too. The assistant director, moving to the man who had interrupted the meal, pauses. My father's ashes, she and the rest of them hear, in this large urn I keep upstairs. I don't know why, but they weigh less when I play music. Mozart. I have a scale and it always happens. Don't know why. Before these last words, 2 others have stood. The assistant director hearing shh from all sides as she begins a firm call for order, obeying the sound. He's right about the wolf, a tall man bent 1/3 of his height declares. Everyone's right about what they believe. I went to war. I killed a man. I've seen him since, thousands of times, in many faces. I've nodded, and he's nodded back. Others standing as he sits, the assistant director sitting also, seeing the snow now appearing to slant upward. Upward. She'd swear it. She wonders if she has enough courage to say that to these flesh vessels after more of them speak, and it feels her turn. I'm going to close with a poem about 3rd grade and about writing, about writing now. And I mentioned Palmer penmanship in it. I don't know, I hope many of you weren't subjected to Palmer penmanship, but we all were back when I was in high school, very rigid way of learning to write cursives. And in fact, I still can see at the front of the room the absolute correct and only way to form capital A's, B's, small b's, and so on. We used to have to practice circles, and always, of course, keeping your writing on the lines. And I mentioned my teacher, my 3rd grade teacher, Ms. Johnson, and this was before MS was a term. We called her that and thought of her as that because we didn't much like her. She was someone we thought of. Well, Miss just didn't seem right to think about her, and certainly Mrs. didn't either, since we couldn't imagine anybody who'd want to live with her. So here's after school. The first sentence I remember writing was after school in 3rd grade. I will not throw snowballs on school property. In Palmer penmanship, on lined paper, I repeated the lie for half an hour or so. Ms. Johnson came and stood between me and the large clock with Roman numerals that I hated for moving so slowly. In memory, it actually clicked backward an inch. before releasing us those afternoons. She, of course, found fault with certain letters or spacing, and maybe a reason I choose to sit mornings not knowing what I'll write until I do is partly a result of that sentence. That maybe I am repealing it with other words. With Ms. Johnson there invisibly for me to displease and puzzle. That clock, one of the faces of God I don't believe in. And many properties on which to throw vowels, consonants, aiming at those owning too much of our time, our choices when released. Thank you.